Welcome again. So this is the third attempt. I think there's just some sort of unstable internet connection. So we do these lives on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. As soon as I say Friday, it's been going off, but this time it's saying. So let's continue. And every single week, we try to cover a bunch of questions or stories or an example of a property. So here we go. So we jump right into it. Please help us by inviting your friends, family, other people that may be interested or would like to learn as far as investing in real estate. So having said that, so the first question was, I'm actually going to start with a property that I went to this afternoon. And the property that I went to was somebody called me and they have a property for sale. So this was a property that basically is going on a short sale. So what happened is the mother passed away. The property's been vacant for 4 years now, and they're going to lose it to a auction, but because the mother passed away, it's a part of a probate. Amount of money that is owed on this property is $132,000, and so $132,000 is what is owed on it, and these people are looking for about $229 is what they want for the property. Now, because the property's been basically vacant for all this time, they haven't made a mortgage payment for all this time, and the bank started the foreclosure process late. They just finally are taking it to foreclosure, meaning if these people don't sell the property by next week, so next week on Wednesday, it's going to auction. Excellent property, but the property needs a lot of work. So I want to talk through these numbers. And I said no, right? I said no to the lady, and the lady got extremely upset, meaning she's like, oh, you can pay, I've seen your videos and you buy a lot of properties and you can pay what I'm asking. This is reasonable. So in her estimation, that property is worth $500,000, right? After fix up. In my estimation, the property is worth $440. So maybe $430 is more accurate. That's just me. I tend to be a little bit more conservative. And so the lady was getting all animated. She's like, well, maybe I'm just going to borrow the money and I can just do it myself. I know you do these real estate classes and you're just trying to steal my property. I'm not going to sell it. And I'm like, ma'am, listen, number one, I called you because I saw the property is vacant. I own a lot of properties up and down the street, and I'm interested in the property. I would love to buy the property at a price that I want to pay for it. Now, if you don't, you're the basically a heir to the property, and if you don't want to sell it at that price, that's perfectly fine. And probably I am not the right buyer for you because I want to buy a property at a deep discount. I want to buy a property where I can make a lot of money, right? Otherwise, I'm just not the right guy. That doesn't mean there are not other people that that'll buy your property. There may be other people that'll buy it, and great, go ahead and sell it to them. But I am not going to buy it at your price. I'm going to buy it at my price. And so she gets all mad. She's like, I'm going to report you to the real estate commission that you're you're lowballing my property. And I'm like, ma'am, you can report it to whoever. It really doesn't make any difference. You're not going to force me to overpay for your property. I'm suggesting to you that you should sell it to a different investor. So she's like, well, but that's not possible. I only have a week. You called me like 10 times. People from your office called me. I'm like, well, of course, because we're trying to get hold of you, because if we don't get hold of you, you're going to lose the property, right? She's like, well, yeah, but I've been to those real estate seminars, and I know that if I was to do this property, I would make a lot of money. I'm like, ma'am, that's exactly what you should do, right? You should buy the property, save it from going to auction, and you'll be good, right? You'll be able to supposedly, you'll be able to make a lot of money. And so she's like, well, now she's all irate, acting all, cantankerous. And then she finally calms down. She's like, well, but honestly, what do you think I can make on it? I'm like, listen, it's 120,000 in work, right? That's just what it is. She's like, oh, no, I can do the work for 60,000. I'm like, God bless you. If you can do the work for 60,000 bucks, you'll make about 150,000 bucks on the property, on a flip, right? But I don't think the work can be done for that. I'm just telling you what most people are going to spend doing the work. She's like, well, how much would you spend? I'm like, I think I can get the work done reasonably. From what I'm looking at, about 85,000, I can turn it into a superb house. She's like, well, but then why wouldn't you do it? I'm like, listen, on an average, for an average investor, this is about a 110 to 120,000 a project. That's just what it is, right? And then if it was bought, it was a rehab, put back on the market, and then turned around and sold, all that kind of stuff. By the time it's all said and done, I'll probably make 70 to 80,000. Average investor will make 70,000 to 80,000. So she's like, well, but that makes sense. That's a lot of money. Most people don't even make that working a year. I'm like, I agree with you 100% that is a lot of money, but I'm still not going to do it at your price. She's like, well, but you're just being ridiculous. I'm like, I think you're being ridiculous. What you want me to do is you want me to browbeat me into agreeing to a price that you want to pay for the property. That you want for the property, which I'm like, I wish you nothing but the best, but I'm probably not the right guy, right, to buy this property, and you should sell it to some other investors. So she's like, well, I had other investors come and they were willing to pay me 20 or 30,000 more than you. I'm like, well, great. Why don't you sell it to them? Well, but they can't close on the property in the next 2 days. I want to close on the property in the next 2 days because the property is going to go to auction. So basically today is Wednesday. So she wants the property closed by Friday. Think about this, right? 48 hours. And somebody's got to give her the price that she wants. I'm not willing to give her that price. I want to buy the property for 188 is what I want to buy the property for. And she feels that I'm being ridiculous. She wants 230. And I'm like, ma'am, I'm just not going to pay the price that you want. You want somebody else to go do it, then that's fine. And the reason why she was hung up about this whole thing is because she doesn't want to go into next week or so, because if there's a delay of a day or two, right, now she's going to come up against a auction deadline. And what had happened was that she didn't put the property in the market because she was adamant she was going to flip it. Nobody is willing to give her a loan because I'm sure there's other issues with her. This is not the only issue. And she knows everything, right? In her lifetime, this woman has never, ever owned a house. But she's like, I know what to do. I'm like, okay, great. I'm like, well, then that's wonderful that you know what to do. Then why don't you do it, right? And I'm like, ma'am, this is your business. I don't really care. But since you're this adamant, right? I'm like, what do you do for a living? So she's like, well, I'm a professor. I'm like, I'm just saying, I'm like, I have no idea where you teach. But clearly, if you are a professor, and I'm like, what are you a professor of? English. I'm like, great. English professor, wonderful, right? And I'm like, if you're an English professor, ma'am, if you tell me, hey, your syntax is wrong in a sentence, the way your sentence structure is, I'm probably not going to argue with you, right? And I'm like, listen, I'm a professor of real estate. So I'm just telling you, I'm not the right guy to buy your stupid house at the price you want. I'll buy it. In fact, I'll buy it within 24 hours. I've done the title research. I have the all the things, and there are some issues with the village. There's other issues with the property that most people are going to have a hard time with. I've already done that homework. So I'm like, I can deliver the money in a wire by tomorrow about 4 o'clock, or in fact, even earlier in the day, as long as it's done by my way. I'm not going to do it your way, but I'll do it my way. And what I'm trying to say is this. So she's basically like, well, no, this is not a pleasant conversation. This is what she told me. So I'm like, well, maybe it's not a pleasant conversation. I think I find it very amusing that you'd have this conversation with me, because I'm like, I told you, I'm not the right guy. Sell it to somebody else. And she was just amazed, what she could not believe when she kind of got upset and basically pretty much slammed the door when I was leaving, because I'm like, ma'am, I'm not going to pay you what you want. She's like, oh, you're being ridiculous. You're greedy, da, 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 da. I'm like, well, yeah, I'm greedy because I want to make enough money that makes sense for me. I'm not going to listen to you as to how much money I should make. on the property. I'm not going to do the flip for 60, 70,000 bucks. I'm just not going to do it. For me, it's stupid to spend 120,000 bucks to do a $60,000 flip, right? So I got to buy the property for 220. Then I'm going to put 120 into it, and then I'm going to make 60,000 bucks. That's stupid. That is just stupid. So, anyways, so she's like, well, that's what I'm going to do, and blah blah. I'm like, do whatever the hell you want to do, right? It's like sometimes, have you ever tried? You find basically a cow and make them stand in front of you. Then you basically open the Holy Bible or open the Holy Quran or the Gita or the Upanishads and try reading that to a cow, right? It's not the cow's fault that they don't comprehend, right? I'm not calling this woman a cow, but you know what I'm saying, that I'm the stupid one that I stood there and kept talking to her to try to explain to her, because I think it's a great property. I know for sure that if she keeps this up, next Wednesday, she's losing the property. I mean, she's going to lose the property, bar none, right? And there's going to be a mess because there are other heirs to the property. And if it's done the right way, it'll work out. Otherwise, guess what? The money will sit at the state, the excess funds, whenever it sells at the auction, and then it's going to end up going to the state. Good luck collecting it from the state. This is just how it works, right? She doesn't understand the process. I'm obviously not going to go explain it to her. I mean, we'll bid at the auction. I just think it's going to go at a higher price, and it's going to just become a mess. So, but regardless, I just wanted to share that story because a lot of times, the other day I posted a video about this on a different property, that Bellwood property that I'm flipping, and I'm going to make 50,000 bucks, right? And I'm pissed off about that whole stupid thing because it's really not worth it. I mean, it's just not worth the aggravation that I'm going through on that stupid property, because I bought the property, rehabbed it, now it's going back on the market, and there's really not a whole heck of a lot I'm making. 40,000 bucks, if you've never done a flip, may sound a lot of money to you. It's just not. For the last 8-9 months that we've been messing with that silly property, it's just not worth it. And I said this the other day, and a bunch of people on Facebook and Instagram, they're like, "Oh my God, you're crazy! You just don't understand," And I think they're thinking probably I'm full of myself. I'm actually not. I'm just telling you how flipping and how running a real estate business works, right? I'm not saying I understand everything about it, but I do understand how to make money in real estate. I mean, that's something I understand very well. And if I'm telling you $45,000 is not enough profit for me, I'm not saying that wouldn't have been enough profit when I started. I used to do flips where I make 25,000 bucks. I was happy, right? I was like, wow, I'm a genius. Today, that profit is not enough for me. At a different time in my life, it was all the money in the world to me, right? But anyways, I just thought I'd share that story. So there's another question that came up. If there is a property that has 20% of the neighbor's garage on the property line, what issues could happen? It's not a shared garage. It's just laying on the property line. Now, there's a difference on this, right? If something is on the property line, right? Meaning this is the line and the fence is built right on the property line. That's one thing. But if the fence is built here, it's saying 20% of the neighbor's garage. So a garage is 20 feet wide and 20 feet deep. So that's a 20 by 20 garage. That's the typical garage. And this says 20% of the garage is on the property line. That means that there is almost 40 square feet, right? 80 square feet that is on this side, meaning a good 4 foot sticks on your property. So basically there's an encroachment of 4 feet, right? Now, if that is the case, I'm assuming that that is the case and that it's not laying on the property line, it is laying 4 foot into your property if 20% of that garage is in your property. So that means technically that unless you or the previous people that owned the property before you, unless they have given a express permission, right, to the other person in writing and it's on the deed. Now, if it's in the deed and that's how the property was sold, that, hey, I gave my previous, I'm the previous owner and I give permission to my neighbor, and basically their garage is 2 feet on our property, on this property, and that's okay, right? That's just how the property is being sold. You accepted that deed in that particular manner. That's perfectly fine, right? But if you basically got the property and there is an existing encroachment, that's called an encroachment on the property, technically, unless your neighbor has basically a title company that covered over that encroachment, which is something that you have to think about, right? You could literally cut out that side of the garage. And guess what? He would not basically have a standing garage. He would have to basically build a new garage or cut the garage in half or whatever he would have to do, because that 4 feet is on your particular property. So, and I'll give you guys an example, and this is actually a live, honest example. So somebody used to come to Chicago RIA, and this person was one of those people who knew everything about everything. See, the most dangerous people are people who, if you say, hey, I don't really know a whole bunch, I'm willing to learn, then there's help for you, right? But if you're that person, oh, I know everything, never achieved anything in life, but they know everything, right? Nobody knows everything, right? Nobody, none of us know everything all the time, because the more you learn, the more you realize how little you really know about anything. And so this person was like, Andrew, I'm buying this property, blah, blah. I'm like, hey, listen, man, it's a cul-de-sac lot. The way that garage sits from the driveway, it kind of sits not behind the house, it sits on the other side. And generally, the cul-de-sac lots on the corner are a pie, right? It's kind of a narrower on the front, and then as they go in the back, they get wider. But I'm like, I can't quite tell. Generally, the property line, this is general, the property line runs closer to your garage driveway kind of thing. Here, your garage, basically, you have a house here, you have a driveway over here, and the garage is on this side. It's offset. So you go there and you make a turn like that, which is kind of odd shape, but that's just how it was. And I'm like, listen, it's just kind of odd. When you buy the property, just make sure you get a survey, right? So this person bought the property out of a pre-foreclosure situation, in a foreclosure situation, distressed sale. There's a wholesaler involved, and he buys the property. Doesn't pay for the survey because it's going to cost an additional $450 or $500, right? If he had done it ahead of time, it would cost $400. In this case, it was going to cost him $500 because last minute. And so he doesn't have what is called extended title coverage. What does that mean? What that means is that when you get a survey done on a property, at that point, the title company gives you extended title coverage. So once they examine the title, right, meaning how the property is titled, and then they look at the survey, in case there's some sort of encroachment, there's something else, the title company will cover that as a part of your title insurance, right? He didn't get that. So what happens is he goes and buys the property, rehabs the property, and is going to go flip it. When he's flipping the property, in the meantime, right, he puts the property on the market. What he realizes is that the neighbor had taken the garage door. It could not be the more bizarre thing. What he had done is taken the garage door and moved it on the other side, and he had taken the siding from the back side of the garage and put it on this side. So now, the driveway goes like this, and you cannot get inside the garage. And so this guy calls me. He's like, oh my God, I'm going to sue the neighbor, blah, blah, blah. All this nonsense, right? And I'm like, hey, man, listen, before you start suing somebody, right? And number one, you probably don't have enough money to be able to win anything here. I would imagine if the man just switched this, first, I didn't know whether to laugh or whether to cry. And I'm like, clearly there's something more to it. I'm like, you did a survey. He's like, oh, no, my attorney said it's not important. I'm like, well, your attorney probably has a problem in terms of an E&O in this particular case, if that's the advice that your attorney gave. I'm like, do you have that in writing by any chance? He's like, oh, no, I don't have it in writing. My attorney said that, I didn't do it. I'm like, okay, Just saying, you probably are going to have a problem. And so he goes and further looks into it. And what he realizes was this, that when they had built that particular property, basically the garage was built on the neighbor's yard. Apparently, the older gentleman that lived in this property at some point, the other gentleman that lived next door, they were best of buddies, and they decided to put up a garage, right? And they would basically share that garage space. So it was a pretty nice sized garage, right? All decked out, bunch of, I guess, working supplies in there. And this guy, and it was built this way, so you would think that this was connected to this driveway. So you would think that this would belong to this house. Actually, even though the access was here, it did not belong to the house that Flipper was flipping. And what ended up happening was there's nothing he could do, right? He didn't have the survey, so he didn't even realize that the garage was actually built on the neighbor's yard. And the neighbor was pissed because they're like, I'm not going to let the bank have the garage because it's built on my property. So now the neighbor had a regular garage at the back of his house, which his driveway led to, and the other one, basically, which is like, I'm going to use it like a shed because it's built on my piece of land. He was upset because they had foreclosed on his former friend, not former friend, his friend. And so his deal was the heck with the bank. And this investor got screwed. So whoever this person is that sent the question, your neighbor may have a problem. Second question was, if you're starting with no properties today, what type of properties would you focus on and what geographic areas of greater Chicagoland market? So where should you look at? So, and this is a question comes up all the time, especially for a lot of people that are new to Mastery or they show up in Chicago area, right? My suggestion would be is the place for you to focus on should be closer to your house, number one, right, closer to wherever that you live, because geographically it's going to be easier. And then look at areas that are B or C areas. So let's say you live in an expensive area, or you live in a moderately expensive area, or you live in a lower or a poorer area, economically I'm talking about, then I think you should focus on moderate areas and areas that are, so basically A is affluent, B is bread and butter, C is areas with some challenges, and D is a disaster. So don't look there. So what I'm trying to say is this: if you live in North Side, I would not go invest in the South Side. Why? Because it's going to be much more difficult for you to understand the area. Not that it can't be done, but it's better for you that if you already live in the north part of the city or going up towards, say, in the northern suburbs, then go up. Go towards Waukegan, go towards, some of those, some of the northern suburbs, Kenosha and all that area, because it's easier to get to the type of areas for you to understand is going to be easier to go up that way, right? If you're in the far suburbs, meaning if you're, say, west of the city, then I would look in those pockets, right? Like I happen to live in Oak Brook, office is based out of Oak Brook. Well, guess where I want to buy more properties? I want to buy more properties around Oak Brook. I can't buy Oak Brook because Oak Brook is just too expensive for investment properties, right? The properties don't fit that. But Hillside, Westchester, places like, say, Broadview, all these areas around, that's ideal because it's right close to the office. Now, will I go up to Schaumburg? Will I go to all A areas? Yes. But first, I want to start where I live. Within 30 to 45 minutes generally is where you start. And always within 30 to 45 minutes, you're going to be able to find plenty of areas that are good B and C pockets. Now, if you're up north in certain parts of Chicago, there are going to be a lot more expensive houses around you. And that is totally understandable. But generally, I would start with B and C pockets, medium-sized houses, anywhere from 800, 850 square feet to about 1,350 square feet is where I would look. And those are the areas that I would start in. I would not generally go to an A area because the property prices are too expensive for especially people starting out. right? To even do a flip or a wholesale or even to do a rental property, those property prices are harder to make it work, especially when you are new. The next question was in the northern suburbs. Lots of questions from the north. What are some of the neighborhoods that you would focus on? Right. So if I looked at the northern neighborhoods, right, there's a lot of them. I mean, there's like, you can look at, say, Mundelein. You can look at parts of Grays Lake. You can look at McHenry if you're going out northwest. You can look at something like, I'm just looking here on the map as I would, this is just me, unless you know North Chicago, personally, I would skip North Chicago. I would look at Waukegan. I would look at Gurnee. I would look at, like, I just bought a property in Lindenhurst, right? Great area. Wadsworth is going to be high price. Beach Park, I would look at. Zion, I'm not sure about, because Zion at one time was very beat up. Now the numbers have stabilized a little bit, but still Zion is not something I feel very comfortable with. That's just me. You may look at it and you may be happy with it. Villa Park. Villa Park is an area which has gone straight through the roof in terms of prices. Round Lake Beach, Round Lake Heights, Round Lake itself. You have Haynesville. You have lots of areas in that particular pocket that will make for good B and C type of areas. If it's me, I would not at all have any problem even going in, if you're north, far north suburbs, into going into Kenosha or that pocket over there, because there are some wonderful opportunities even in that pocket. There's areas like Antioch, some of those areas also. They're far-flung areas, but they make for phenomenal rentals, or they make for phenomenal flips if that's what you're looking for. So it depends on what particular pocket. Now, if you're going to basically be just in the North Shore, it's going to be difficult to find properties that are up and coming. And this person was saying up and coming because a lot of these properties are already A type of properties. Areas are already A type of areas. But in the north part of Chicago, generally, I'm just making a general statement that it is harder to find up and coming neighborhoods because a lot of them have already gone through that phase and are already in decent condition. But there are a lot of bread and butter properties that you can find that are up north, and you can get some wonderful deals, especially now as you go into the winter market. So hopefully this makes sense. Thank you for all the questions that you guys sent. Hopefully some of the examples, some of the stories that we share during these lives makes some sense, and hopefully you're able to take some lesson away from those. So please refer your friends, refer your family to these, and I will talk to you guys on Friday. Thanks a bunch and have a good day.